Hello, ladles and jelly spoons, ladies and gentlemen. It's your GAPS coach Emma here with another GAPS chat, a gutsy GAPS chat. And this week we're going to be tackling the rather distressing um, issue of Crohn's disease and how my guest recovered herself to a beautiful, shiny, healthy, vibrant state. My guest this week is Monika Holland, and her website states that she says, I am on a mission to do whatever I can to help others to live a pain free life with an abundance of energy and happiness, all while making the world a healthier place, one person at a time, which I absolutely love. So, welcome, Monica, to this Gutsy Gaps chat for Wild Heart Radio. How are you today?
I'm very good and I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I was thrilled when you reached out to me and said, let's get together because you are also a GAPS coach. So
Indeed,
to
indeed.
be able to hang out with another GAPS coach and, swap ideas and have a chat, it's just amazing to get together with somebody with your kind of background because you've got a heck of a lot more experience than I do. So it said in your wonderful expression there on your website that you want to help people live a pain-free life. I'm taking it that at some point you were in quite a lot of pain, were
Oh,
you?
yeah, that was pretty much 90% of my life and my day and my night. And when you were introducing the subject of our chat today, you've mentioned obviously Crohn's, and Crohn's was one of my many diagnoses. And yeah, I
Maybe
was
can we explain to people what Crohn's is
sure,
exactly?
sure. Crohn's is a lovely label given by a Western medicine to those people who have a really, really severe inflammation in the gut. And there is a lot of acceleration, there is a lot of digestive issues. So starting with diarrhea with blood, mixed with constipation. And yes, you can have both at the same time. And vomiting. And yes, I had episodes of sitting on the toilet, having diarrhea, and then within 2 seconds after, vomiting into the bowl. Joys of severe digestive issues, extreme bloating, stabbing pains, to the point that sometimes I would faint because it was so painful. Lots of mucus coming out. Obviously, very unbalanced microbiome. Talking about thousands parasites.
Wow, thousands and thousands of parasites. I'd like to talk about that a little bit in a minute. When you said ulcerations, what does that mean exactly, ulcerations?
Well, just imagine that the gut lining is so damaged that you do have open wound in that gut lining. So so just imagine eating anything, and in the worst times of the worst flare-ups I had, even sipping warm water would be painful because every time you touch that open wound with the food, with obviously you put it here, it goes through your digestive system. And my Crohn's was affected a small intestine, and in particular ileum, which was the end of small intestine when it kind of turns into the large intestine. Um, and when you have open wound, any movement around that area is like a sandpaper on an open wound. It's like salt on an open wound. So just imagine how it felt. And obviously, lot of yeast symptoms. I had so much yeast in my bowels that it actually created a massive ball, and it was moving through my intestines. It was moving. I could just imagine a pregnant woman. You know, when a woman is pregnant, heavily pregnant, and then the baby starts either, kicking the elbow or sticking out the feet. So you see that bump in different places around that pregnant belly. I wasn't pregnant. I had that, and that was yeast, and it was moving through my abdomen.
Oh,
And I thought I had tumors moving, like big tumor moving from different places to the other. Luckily, it just turns out it was yeast.
my
And
God. So did you go to the doctor with this issue? Did you say, "Help me, doctor, what can I do?" What did
oh,
you do?
oh yeah. Well, the story pretty much started, I think, when I was around maybe 8, maybe 9, I think maybe 8 years old, when I had a very, very strong abdominal pain. Imagine a stitch around your appendix, but 1,000 times more. That was pretty much the feeling. I ended up in hospital. They didn't find anything. Move forward to my early 20s. That's when I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I had colonoscopy done, another test which confirmed my C-reactive protein in my blood test was always through the roof, and they couldn't understand why. They were saying, "Oh, stress, stress, stress." But
'Cause
when they
you
said,
worked in a quite a high flying job at some point, international jet setty, quite a high flying job at some point. Did you?
yeah, it wasn't stressful at the time.
Okay.
I loved it. I actually loved it. But I think the stresses I encountered in my childhood and my teenage years, some were self-inflicted stresses. Um, but just a very brief story, because obviously we could be talking about it pretty much the whole night. I grew up in Poland, in Silesia, which is a very, very industrial part of Poland. Lots of coal mining business going on, lots of heavy metals in the air. So we had rain, which could actually smell like it was actually smelling sulfur. There were heavy metals in the soil. There was heavy metals in the water. I remember coming back from school, picking out my boogers, and they were black. They were
Wow.
black because of the amount of pollution in the air. Then I lived in the house with black mold. It was there, like in the corner in the kitchen, black mold. And my mom was just cleaning it with the vinegar and baking soda. Ah, there was no tomorrow. Um, so, and also when I was a child, I was exposed to the Chernobyl nuclear plant explosion. So that radiation also added so much stress to my body. On the top of that, some childhood trauma, um, which basically all of those things led me to have a very turbulent teenage times. Lots of drinking, lots of smoking, like a proper rebel, really, really bad girl to others and to myself. So fast forwards to my early 20s, I was still studying. That's when I was diagnosed. And yeah, and since that time, lots of steroids, lots of immunosuppressants. I was taking pills like candies. Obviously, obviously, as we know, the Western medicine sometimes it's helpful. I'm not going to say that it's not, but I think in the context of any chronic disease, in the context of any autoimmune disease, in the context of Crohn's disease, it masks the symptoms, but they always come back, and they always come back stronger, and they always come back with other symptoms. So Crohn's disease is not only about digestive issues. And I think that's one of the things where, Western medicine boxes us. I'm yet to see a person with Crohn's disease who does not have at least 100 other symptoms, including psychological, including insomnia, including skin issues, including problems with liver, kidney, lungs, joints. It just affects the whole body.
That stands to reason when you think if you can't digest your food properly, you can't get the building blocks to make sure every other facet and system of your holistic self is in good working order. You're basically starving. And so, how can your hormones work properly, your skin work properly, your liver, your kidneys? None of it can work properly if you can't actually get the building blocks of the good, nutritious food into you. So, heavens above. So, how old were you then when you were popping all the pills and just not getting anywhere?
my early 20s, and that lasted for many years because obviously I was brought up in a family where my father, very intellectual, loves science, he's engineer, and as much as I love him dearly, we do disagree on many things. But I grew up with the belief that Western medicine is the future, and there will be another medication which is going to be, well, very promising. That will definitely fix my issues. But obviously, at some point, I remember, fast forward to my late 30s, my Crohn's got so bad. Like over years, I was in and out of hospitals. And at some point, it got so bad that first of all, I got allocated Crohn's nurse. I don't know if you knew that NHS in the UK. If you are at the life-threatening stage of Crohn's, you are getting allocated Crohn's nurse who visits you or calls you, or you go and see her once a week. It's basically checking if you're dead.
Wow.
And with appointments with her, the conversation was like, okay, how are you feeling? I was like, well, in pain. Or would you like me to speak to the gastroenterologist to give you another prescription for steroids? The same conversation every single week. And gastroenterologists were saying, your Crohn's progressed so badly that there was so much inflammation, on inflammation, on inflammation, on inflammation. Every single time the inflammation healed, it created a scarring. So imagine scarring on scarring on scarring inside the ileum. So that was kind of, getting smaller, smaller, smaller. And they said it's either going to close pretty much soon, or it's going to burst on the side, outside of the scarring. They said both scenarios is life-threatening. So we have to cut you open and you must take biologics. And I said, okay, let me research that. I've researched the biologics that they were proposing me to take. Now, I do have experience from actually clinical research organization. So I knew how to look at data. I knew I understood what efficacy means. I understood how do they do the research and how to look into that information. So I've looked at the information and efficacy was 30%, meaning only 30% of people taking that biologic may benefit from it. Okay, that's 30%. But then let's look at the list of side effects. Number 1, heart attack. Number 2, cancer. And the list goes on. So I spoke to my gastrologist saying, okay, so if I take that biologics, what will happen if I get a heart condition, heart attack, or whatever kind of, situation with my heart? Gastrologist said, like, don't you worry, we have medication for heart. I said, okay, what about if I get cancer? That's the second most common side effect. Like, don't you worry, usually they're not aggressive cancers, we will do radiation with you. And at that point, I would say, okay, I'm going to do more research. And I knew I don't want to go that route anymore. I think after that conversation, I was awakened in 45 minutes. I said, it's not been working for the past over 20 years or whatever. It's not going to work. In fact, I had that Crohn nurse calling me once a week, chasing me to make a decision. And I would even say the word bullying me into that decision, because she said, well, we had 10 best gastroenterologists from the whole UK discussing your case, and they all agree that you must do this and this. I was like, imagine that pressure, coming from.
Yeah, my God. Oh God, did you have anyone else you could turn to? What was in your mind? What were you thinking? How did you get out of that mess?
Obviously my husband, he was a big support, but obviously over the years, prior to that situation, he's seen, like, he was driving me to hospital just to get another steroid, just to get another drip. just to have another chemically infused enema, just to have another MRI. So, you know, another stuff injected into my body. I was so poisoned. So he knew that we're not going to get answers. So he said, well, I will support you in whatever you do. And, you know, when I became kind of awakened, I was sitting on my sofa and just talking to universe. I said, like, tell me what to do. Like, honestly, tell me what to do. If I'm about to die, that's fine, but just tell me what to do. If I'm about to be bedridden or all my guts need to be cut out, but just tell me what to do. And I repeated it for a few days. I can't remember how many, but at some point I'm sitting on my sofa in a living room, and suddenly there is this urge of me turning into my bookshelf, and this yellow book is staring at me. You know which yellow book I'm talking about.
Do you mean the Bible? I call it my Bible.
The Bible for every single person. It was just staring at me there. And mind you, I've tried many diets, obviously, you can imagine. It's been an ongoing issue for more than 20 years or even longer. I've tried even a vegan diet. I've tried special carbohydrate diet, which was designed for Crohn people, for people with Crohn's by Elaine Gottschall. And also Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride collaborated with Elaine Gottschall on when she was creating GAPS protocol and discussing pluses, minuses, and improvements into protocol. But, you know, nothing worked. So I remember when I read the yellow book for the first time, I was so confused. You know, brain fog. You read and you have no idea what you're reading. It doesn't make any sense. And I thought, I looked at the list of the foods. I was like, but I don't even tolerate 90% of these foods. And all these foods, they give me bleeding, they give me stabbing pain. Like, how those foods are going to heal me? So I've never done it when I read it first time. I was still in, you know, limbo of Western medicine.
I need to just explain to people in case they're not aware that the yellow book is actually GAPS, which is standing for Gut and Psychology Syndrome, which is Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride's first book that she wrote when her own son had become damaged. He was autistic after his childhood inoculations, and then she developed the protocol to help bring him back to fully functioning using the food as the medicine. So that's the yellow book. When we say the Bible, we're talking about that book called Gaps, and it's got a yellow cover. Yeah. So you read it and you went, I can't fathom this. I can't work it out. It sounds like way too much for me. I'm not going to go there. But so how did you end up on in Gap? How did you end up on Gaps in the end then?
So I read it a few times and I said, okay, I'm doing it. I took the things which I could tolerate, and I'm from Poland. So all the things which Dr. Natasha is teaching is part of the traditional Polish cooking. Meat
Brilliant.
stock. We eat meat stock every day in Poland. Well,
Brilliant.
maybe not anymore because we've been too westernized already. Meat stock, kefir, beet kvass, fermented stuff, animal fats, you know, sallow, duck fat. That was the things from my childhood. Like I will just pick things which I can tolerate, which I know are not going to send me to hospital, and I will just work through that. And I started it. I just went for it, and I cannot remember the very first 3 months because I was hit with such a strong die-off detox reaction. I was like a zombie. My brain fog got 1,000 or even 10 times worse. I was like a walking dead. I was like walking dead. My husband was so afraid for my life. I wasn't picking up the phone call from the Crohn's nurse. I said, like, I don't want to hear from them. But although my body felt like I am going to that I was on a high-speed train going through going to crash, you know what happened? My intuition switched on. And I knew that I was on the right track. I just knew. And then what happened? suddenly the bleeding stopped.
Wow.
And then what happened? Suddenly I slept half a night without stabbing pains. So I was like, I am onto something here.
How long did it take from when you first started to when you managed to sleep a little bit and not be in pain?
I would say 3 months, more than
Yeah.
3 months.
But after 20 years of such severe illness, that's pretty good
Yeah,
going. Bloody
yeah,
hell.
yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Did you have anyone to help guide you at this stage?
Not to start with, but then I was getting help to formulate, to kind of personalize a protocol to me. But it wasn't until I think the biggest impact on my gaps journey was no plant gaps.
Interesting. No plants at all.
Removed all the plants,
Wow.
which previously I was like, but this is so unhealthy.
Yeah.
Like, what? You're not even going to eat a little bit of cucumber. Well, I couldn't eat cucumber. I couldn't touch anything raw because it was like a sandpaper on that
Yeah. No,
acceleration.
we've been proper indoctrinated with the 5 a day idea, haven't we, by the government? It's like 5 a day, get your 5 a day. It doesn't matter where you get it from, just get your 5 fruit and veg a day. I mean, fruits for me are pretty empty foods. People say, oh, but it's full of minerals and vitamins and things. Okay, maybe it's got some structured water in it. Yes, a bit of minerals, a bit of vitamins. But it's mostly fructose, and fructose is a disaccharide, which is difficult for your body to break down into a monosaccharide if you've got any kind of issues. And when I say issues, I mean, have you got mental problems like ADHD or dyslexia? Is there autism, or is it depression, anxiety? That's gaps. And then Dr. Natasha's second book, Gut and Physiology Syndrome, goes on to outline how gaps can help with arthritis and colitis and Crohn's and physical ailments, kidney problems, you name it really, heart problems, the works. When we get the diet right, things seem to change. Your body manages to find its balance, just
Oh,
outstanding.
absolutely, absolutely. You know what? We've been fed so much rubbish information,
Oh my God. The
but it
worst one, the worst lie is the saturated fat, isn't it? Saturated fat's going to give you heart disease. That's the biggest lie, and it's been around since the 1950s when Ansel Keys started to get involved with the American Heart Association, I think it was. What a bunch of nonsense.
interesting fact. I love reading scientific sometimes I call it scientific nonsense, but
The papers, you mean papers, the scientific
the
papers.
scientific papers, some clinical trials, and some of them they've got a lot of validity, but some of them have, honestly, some of the information are just taken out of the context. I always like to look at data from Poland. Why? From before 2004 and earlier. Why? Because we didn't have supermarkets. We ate saturated fats. We ate lard. We ate butter. We didn't have margarine until maybe early 2000.
Really? So
Yeah.
recently? Wow, great. I
So
read margarine in the 1970s when I was growing up. God.
So when I hear, obviously the false information that saturated fat cause heart disease, I was like, go and look at the heart attack data from Poland. It is there on the government-run website. Look at the data. It's like was so minimal in Poland, and now since we joined the Western world onto, a spree on supermarkets and all the convenience foods and the Western lifestyle, whoo, heart attacks, whoo.
Wow.
Must be coincidence, right?
Right. My God, yeah, it must be a coincidence. I've also seen graphs where the incidence of, I think it was ulcerative colitis, correlates almost perfectly to the increase in the use of glyphosate in our farming in the UK, which is very
Oh,
interesting.
well, to be fair, I've seen so many different research, glyphosate. I've seen even research about when we started using fridges, that impacted
Yeah, right.
prawns, and you see, yeah,
Before the dawning of the age of the fridge, most things were preserved using fermentation.
mineral salt,
And salt.
fermentation,
Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. So,
absolutely.
there are lots of hypotheses, but it actually doesn't matter, because what matters, we need to go back to removing all that toxicity and start eating the real foods which heal and seal the gut, restores the microbiome, detox our bodies, and if it takes you to remove the plant matter in order to heal and seal your gut lining,
Do it.
well, do it.
Yeah.
Do it. For me, no plant gaps, coffee enemas, and then later on chelation of heavy metals were the three most impactful things in my health.
Brilliant. Oh my God. So,
Hi, just a quick note. As I continue to provide you with free content, I am reminded of the power of community and sharing. If you find value in what you hear, I kindly ask you to share this video with your family, with your friends, and with other community members. So let's join hands in spreading the knowledge and benefits of no plant gaps, detox modalities, and healing. And remember, if you are eager to explore further, our online training is just a click away.
let's just quickly outline what no plants looks like, because some people are going to be horrified by that idea. But can you
Yes.
just give us a little overview of what no plant gaps looks like? I know what it looks like because I've done it and it's lovely, and I've had a great time doing no plant gaps for a little while. When I was a bit under the weather, it picked me right up. But go on, tell everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, let's just talk about cooking methods, because that's quite important to understand. No plant gaps allows only simmering, boiling, no frying, no stir frying, no roasting, no baking. Those cooking methods are much more advanced. And when I say advanced, it means the body works harder to process it, to digest it, and there are lesser chances that you're going to absorb it.
So we're talking about the stock pot here. We're talking about like the stock pot. It's like the kingpin of the GAPS protocol, isn't it? The stock pot. It's like the cauldron of magic power potion, you know, that we just can add well, you could just do the meats to begin with and a bit of sea salt, but then eventually you can be adding your bay leaves and your little herbs and maybe a carrot or two, whatever. But it's getting all the amino acids and the collagen and the gelatin into that easily assimilable liquid that you can just sip that all day long.
Oh, absolutely. So meat stock is the basic remedy, and the only remedy where you basically you drink a lot of it on no plant gaps, because that's the only thing which is going to heal and seal your gut quickly and effectively and for good.
And not hurt those little sores on the inside. Just soothe them.
It's very soothing. It's very soothing. And just remember, meat stock is a pre-digested liquid. So what does it mean? That our body doesn't have to work hard to digest it. So you don't need to have much enzymes, which I didn't. You don't have to have much other compounds in the body to fulfill all the processes of digestion. I didn't have, like I have hardly any. And then it's very easily absorbed in the small intestine. And just remember, Crohn's usually affects small intestine. With ulcerative colitis, usually large intestine. But the most of the foods are absorbed in the small intestine. So if it's all accelerated, like, what are you going to absorb? Everything just goes through it. But very slowly, with drinking that meat stock, it just closes those openings, those wounds in the gut line.
And we can have duck and goose and venison and pork and beef, lamb, you name it, any kind of meat, any kind of fish.
So anything what swim, what used to swim, fly, quack, oink, you name it. Obviously, you need to pick the meats you can tolerate. I couldn't tolerate beef, so I wasn't doing beef stock to start with. I was doing chicken. Then
Also,
introduce.
we need to look also at where the meats come from, because ideally it wants to come from a pasture raised, clean environment where the animal's allowed to express itself, not be force fed or fed grains. Hopefully, that's the kind of thing you're looking for. But we just got to do the best we can with the resources we have, because it can be challenging to find
Yeah.
regeneratively reared meats and pasture raised meats. But that is what we're aiming for. And so then also we have eggs and dairy. That's animal based stuff. When did you manage to bring that into your diet?
So the no plant gaps, there are several stages. So it's not that you introduce everything. And Dr. Natasha describes it in her blue book, all those stages. But it's the meat stock, it's the meat close to the bone, it's the organ meats, it's the fish, is raw egg yolks. We're not touching the whites yet, because whites are, lots of people are allergic to whites, and also whites can pull heavy metals out of the body, and so you don't want to start it too early on your journey,
So egg
because
whites are a way to collate heavy metals.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's why many people are actually reacting to them, and sometimes they think, well, I'm allergic to it, but actually their reaction is very kind of compatible with the heavy metal symptoms.
So
So
what
yeah.
happens if you eat egg whites and it starts to collate the heavy metals? Can you then take something like a zeolite clay or something to mop up those heavy metals to help get them out?
Well, first of all, I would never eat egg whites on its own. Why? Because it depletes your body from the biotin. If you eat egg white together with egg yolk, it's one unifying product. And that
Biotin is vitamin B6, I think. Yes?
so yes, so so I don't recommend anyone eating raw egg whites, just in case you're hearing about heavy metals and, oh, I'm going to now drink.
What about cooked egg whites?
It's fine. It's fine. But on no plant gaps, egg whites are they may come later. But you first of all you need to tolerate egg yolks way before you even think about egg whites. And obviously fermented dairy. So there is whey, there is kefir, there's yogurt, there is sour cream, cultured cream. And in terms of the plant matter, you have plant matter or no plant gaps in the form of fermented brines, fermented vegetable brines. So you could do a vegetable medley brine, but you're not consuming those vegetables yet. You could have a sauerkraut brine. You're not consuming sauerkraut yet. And so
Kvass? Can you do kvass?
yeah. And also another form of plants you can consume on no plant gaps are herbal teas. That's plants as well. But mind you, many people with severely damaged guts, they cannot even tolerate them. So that's another consideration. If you don't tolerate them, don't introduce them as yet. Keep healing the gut lining and just test it every 2 weeks, every once a month. Test it. Have a cup of chamomile tea and see how you react. If you get stabbing pains in your abdomen, hey, you're
That's a
not ready for it
message.
yet.
It's a message
That's
from the
the
body. Just
message.
listen to your body. Your body's going to tell you what it needs. So,
Yeah,
what foods can you eat now, Monica?
pretty much everything.
Nice. That's pretty good going. How long has it taken you from when you first did No Plant Gaps to
Mm. Years,
years?
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But look, now you're
I've
shining
done,
now. Do you know what I mean? You look so well. You've got
and
shiny
I do.
skin. Your cheeks are rosy. Your lips are full, and your eyes are bright. You look amazing. And for somebody who was close to death's door, with the Crohn's nurse ringing you up, with threatening you with 10 specialists, and you've got to take more steroids, it's pretty good going. It's impressive.
Yeah, yeah. I've done well. I've done well, and I will ever be grateful to for Dr. Natasha work, her wisdom, her support. I cannot stress that enough. She is the wisest woman I've ever met, and I've ever learned from, I've collaborated with, and it's just been phenomenal. And thanks to Dr. Natasha, I spent so much time with her, and she helped me a lot. And now I'm helping clients to go through that journey. I'm actually waiting for the final sign off on my No Plant Gaps course, which will be coming up soon. Which is one of my babies. A great collaboration with Dr. Natasha. So exciting news.
That is going to be a resource that is going to help so many people. That is wonderful news. That's really great. Congratulations. And yeah, she is my guru. I met her once at a conference. It was an agricultural conference. And I grabbed her and I recognized her and I grabbed her and we shared a cup of tea with some butter in it. And I said to her, I want to be a GAPS practitioner. And she was like, you can't because you haven't got a nursing background or whatever. She said, but I'm starting a GAPS coaching thing next year. And I was like, I'm in. I was the first person to sign up. I was the first person to sign up as a GAPS coach. I think I was the first person to put myself online as a GAPS coach, not a practitioner, but a GAPS coach, which basically means somebody who's going to help you to cook. Well, do you help people learn how to cook?
Sometimes I think there is most of my clients are in the USA, and let me give you a bit of context. Because I am Polish, because I grew up in the traditional culture where my grandma was doing, let's say, I don't know, 200 jars of sauerkraut.
Wow.
200 jars of gherkins and fermenting. We were drinking raw milk, kefir. It was normal and natural for me. Meat stock was on the stove pretty much all the time. On Sunday, we had meat stock. On Monday, we would make tomato soup out of that meat stock. On Tuesday, we would do fermented gherkin soup out of the meat stock. On Thursday, we would have borscht, which is a fermented beetroot meat stock. On Saturday, we would have pork-based meat stock with fermented rye flour. My husband calls that soup garlic death soup because it's so garlicky. It's a very good contraception. You will never, nobody will ever want to kiss you if you eat that.
That's funny.
So I was never afraid of cooking, and it wasn't hard for me to implement those foods because I knew them by heart. I was eating salad. That was something normal. And then I started working with American clients where they were obsessed about bacteria.
Yeah, we've been brainwashed about that as well, haven't we? It's like the germs. Watch out for the germs. I have struggled with that. People are like, well, I can't leave a stock pot. It's got the bones and the skin. It's all going to go bad. It's like, no, it's okay. It's okay. You can just heat it up again tomorrow if you want, Oh, yeah.
That white cover on sauerkraut or on gherkin. So because like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I will end up in hospital. So yes, I teach people how to cook, how to prepare. I educate them that this is okay. The fuzzy pink stuff is not okay. The fuzzy pink and dark black stuff is not okay.
It's interesting, isn't it? The colours of molds, like white is lactobacillus, and it's like cheese rind, like brie or camembert or whatever. And then you've got the blue molds, like Stilton, and the green ones, like Roquefort. Penicillin came from green or blue mold. And then the warning colours in nature are usually yellow and black, aren't they, for a wasp that's going to sting you, and like red maybe, in a caterpillar or a moth or something that's red and black. They're like warning colors, aren't they? So if there's something growing that's pink or red or yellow or black or like gray,
I love that.
Yeah, we don't touch that. But if it's blue or green or white, people pay a lot of money for probiotics in a pill, but you're growing it yourself. That's the point, isn't it? You're growing it yourself, culturing and cultivating it. Wonderful.
I love your explanation. I'm going to steal it, Emma.
You can have it, mate. You can have it.
It's amazing, an amazing analogy of like how to describe the colors and how to read the things that are happening in nature versus the the things are happening in your kitchen and
Yeah,
also
and you've just got to
love it.
visit the
Love it.
cheese counter
Yes.
in France, or or wherever. If there's a good cheese counter with real cheeses in it, real live cultured cheeses,
Oh yeah.
there's mold everywhere. It's everywhere. So we've only got to be afraid of certain molds, and you can tell which one's which. Now, earlier on, you were talking about how heavy metal chelation and also coffee enemas really helped you. Can we do a bit of a dive for the next 20 minutes about coffee enemas? It frightens people a little bit, the idea of putting coffee where the sun doesn't shine. I can't drink coffee personally. I stopped drinking when I got pregnant with my kids because it gave me the shakes. And then after I'd finished breastfeeding, like 8 years later, I thought I'm having a cup of coffee. And so I had a cup of coffee. I felt amazing. I was flying. I felt in a really good mood, slept well, woke up the next morning, had another cup of coffee. I was like, I'm back on it. Great. And then the
Yay.
third morning I woke up, I had a cracking headache. And I knew that
Oh
if I
no.
drank the coffee, the headache would go. And I was like, I can't live my life like that. I'm going to have to just knock it on the head. But I do enjoy coffee and cream sometimes, cultured cream, 24-hour fermented
In the
cream.
bum.
Yes, up my bum. Now, come on, we've got to explain to people. We're having a laugh about it, but some people are going to think that's weird. But tell us about coffee enemas, Monica. Tell us all about coffee enemas.
Well, I don't think we've got time to talk all about coffee enemas, but maybe maybe we can just talk about what coffee enemas are, a little bit of benefits of coffee enemas, and I can share some of my stories with coffee enemas. So, well, coffee enemas were used as a form of therapeutic modality for years, for centuries. You know, maybe in the modern times, when I've done my research, modern times, the very first kind of a scientific medical case study was published, I think it was 1866. It was in a Pacific Medical Journal. And there was a case study of a poisoned girl who basically was administered a number of coffee enemas over a certain period of time, and she fully recovered with no side effects. She was like actually a brand new child. Then fast forward to this First World War, where German soldiers who were waiting for the operation, for the surgery. Nurses usually were preparing those soldiers with water enema. So obviously you need to cleanse the bowels, physically remove the poop to avoid the risking any infection during the surgery. And at some point they ran out of water. One day it happened, they ran out of water and there was just a jug with coffee while sitting there from breakfast or whatsoever. So one of the nurses said like, okay, it's a liquid, so I'm just going to do it. I'm going to go for it. It turned out that the patient started saying, hey, I'm pain-free and recovering much faster from a surgery. So instead of water enemas, they actually started doing coffee enemas. Then fast forward to the Second World War, German scientists started collecting data and doing a lot of research on coffee enemas, again on soldiers, again the same setup. But it was not until I think 1958 when Dr. Gerson published his first Gerson protocol. And what is Gerson protocol? It's anti-cancer protocol, which involves doing at least 4 coffee enemas a day. And he has a lot of scientific publications and evidence of how it works. Dr. Gerson, I'm very thankful to Dr. Gerson for the work he's done, because he even got to the point where he formulated how long and what type of coffee, how you should actually prepare that solution, that coffee solution, so it maximizes the therapeutic effects of it. Because one of the things is like there are so many different recipes on the internet, and yeah, sure, they will help you somehow. But if you want to maximize the healing benefits, that therapeutic benefits of coffee enema, it's very important to prepare it the way that it releases these compounds, palmitic acid. It activates caffeine. It releases theophylline. It releases chlorogenic acid, and any other healing compounds, because those things will help your body to switch on a turbo detox program and restore many functions in the body. Just really briefly, if you don't mind, I will just share some of those things, what those compounds, how do they actually affect your body. So let's think about the palmitic acid. Palmitic acid basically will enhance the whole liver detox, but it will also stimulate the nervous system receptors. And what does it mean? Well, the whole nervous system is the internal communication system in our body. If the receptors, so let's say a receptor is, let's call it a microphone. If it's switched off, blocked, damaged, nobody else is going to hear you. So that palmitic acid switches it off. It recovers it. Theophylline is especially kind of, fascinating and important because not only it also helps the nervous system, but it balances it out. So if it's overactive, it calms it down. If it's underactive, it gives it a kick.
Genius. Nice.
So, it also helps with increasing production of urine. And you would say like, okay, why would anyone want to pee more, right? Well, just remember obviously our detox pathways. One is poop, one is pee by a kidney, one is sweat, one is lungs, breathing. So if you pee more, you detox more toxicity. And just talking about caffeine, it increases the production of bile. And just very brief explanation. I'm sure your listeners and those who read the Dr. Natasha book, they know what bile is and why it's so important. 90% of people who are constipated is because they don't have enough bile, or bile is too thick, or bile doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Activated caffeine, activated in the coffee solution, restores that. What it also does, it increases the natural production of glutathione. And glutathione is the biggest hero in here, because glutathione, think about glutathione as a super duper cleaner who goes through your body to all the nook and crannies, to dark places, and like, oh, I see you. I will sweep you out to the bloodstream, out to the bile. Bile wraps it out, you poop it out. So the research which been done by all the scientists back in the day reports that by doing coffee enema, you increase the production of glutathione by 600 to 700%.
Oh my God. I had no idea it was that extreme. Fabulous.
Yeah. That's why it's a super, super duper detox.
So I started on the old coffee enemas some years back. I can't remember how long now, maybe 5 or 6 years. I go through phases of doing 2 a week for a few months, and then I stop for a while, and it depends how I'm feeling. But there was one time when I looked in the pan after I'd done a coffee enema, right? This is a trigger, might be a trigger for people. I'm going to talk about poop, okay? And I looked in the pan and I thought to myself, hold on a minute, I didn't eat any melon pips. I haven't been eating melon. What's all those melon pips? Well, it looked like sunflower seeds or something. I was like, well, hundreds of what looked like sunflower seeds, right? I had a better look, and I had a close-up look, and one of them moved. And I was like, what the dickens has just exited from my body? I think it was liver flukes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It might have been. If it was like a flattish shape, like a leaf shape,
that's like a little seed, a pip, looked like a pip or a seed or something.
Or sometimes parasite nests look like that as well. So you might be pooping out a lot of, baby parasites.
Yeah. We've all got parasites, haven't we? We've all got parasites all of the time. It's like we're an ecosystem actually living in some symbiosis with some of these parasites. Dr. Natasha calls them the cleaners, doesn't she?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this is the thing with parasites. We shouldn't be paranoid about parasites because they are part of us. So if you don't like parasites, you don't like yourself. But the point is that if there are too many of them, that's when you start seeing the problems. And but it's quite important to kind of note that coffee enema not only physically disturbs the nest of parasites in your gut and rips that off, destroys biofilms, get the yeast out and you poop it out, but also bile is very toxic to parasites, and it basically suffocates them, and then you put them out. You know what? I've got thousands of pictures of different parasites on my phone, and I was always laughing if somebody ever,
Have
I don't
you? You've got
know,
photos of parasites on your phone. Oh my God, I love it. Don't you think you should put them up on your website or something?
well, I actually do have I'm working on the parasite course where I'm going to put the pictures, help people to identify them, not being scared of them. And actually, when you see the parasites coming out after coffee enema, you dance. This is your celebration. This is your celebration, because it means your body got strong enough to push it out. And it means that that parasite does not have that much food left. So you starved it, and the parasite like, I'm going to find another party.
Yeah, right.
I'm done with you. So there's nothing to be afraid about parasites. And I don't recommend any antiparasitic protocols for when somebody starts doing GAPS, because many of the GAPS foods are already antiparasitic. Coffee enemas will get the parasites out. I would only talk about antiparasitic remedies after somebody done, let's say, a year on GAPS, at least build up the system. And if they have parasites, we also need to mention, I would check what is the reason those parasites are still there, or yeast, typically heavy metals, mold, radiation, too much glyphosate. And I would address that first before killing off parasites, because if you kill off parasites before you address heavy metals, you are in.
Yeah. So I often point out to people that we carry about in us E. coli and strep, and of all different types. There are different kinds of E. coli, different kinds of streptococcus, different kinds of fungus, and candida is in all of us, and it's called upon by the body when you've got mercury toxicity, and the body says, hey, candida, come over here and bloom for me, will you, and just help me eat up all this mercury. So we don't want to try and kill the candida or kill the thrush. We want to try and get the heavy metal out, and then the thrush will naturally go back to its dormant state where the body can call it up again if it needs it another day. So is there anything, Monika, that if you say you were doing 4 coffee enemas a day, which is a lot, wouldn't you be getting a bit demineralized or dehydrated or something? Or do we have to do anything about that?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, if you listening to this interview, please do not do on your own four coffee enemas a day. Do not do it with experienced coach practitioner to guide you through it, because yes, you can harm yourself. Obviously, there are some coffee enemas are super safe, but there are some risks if you don't do it properly. So if you don't prepare the coffee solution in the correct way, if you choose, let's say, non-organic coffee, well, you're just adding more mold, you're just adding more pesticides, you're adding more toxicity into your body. You want to get rid of it, so it's always choose the organic coffee beans. But also, there are some contradictions. People with, let's say, Crohn's, with an active flare-up, with bleeding, don't touch coffee enemas. Just wait until that blood goes away. The same for people with ulcerative colitis, or people with colon cannot do enemas. People who are undergoing current chemotherapy, it's recommended against. People who've just had a surgery, they need to wait 6 to 8 weeks at least. Or people with, let's say, renal failure or respiratory failure. It's always best if you have complex health issues, don't try them on your own, because it might not be a good idea. But
how do we remineralize? Should we be taking salts or something orally?
So if somebody is following GAPS and drinking 5 cups of meat stock a day,
That's
with a lot
pretty
of
good.
mineral salt,
Yeah.
That's a lot of minerals. GAPS shakes, lots of minerals. Herbal teas have minerals. Obviously, mineral salt, Baja Gold salt, uh, how do you call it? The Celtic sea salt. You know, this is a great way of adding minerals. All fermented foods will have lots of minerals. So I see people losing minerals if they do a lot of coffee and enemas, and even if they eat GAPS food. So then we work and we look into other things to do to help get those minerals back. And we look at the symptoms, you know, what symptoms you have. Is it the sodium you're missing? Is it the potassium you're missing? Is it the magnesium you're missing? And then we come up with the personalized plan. Okay, what kind of things you could have to replenish them. But for most people who, let's say, do one coffee enema a week and eating all those GAPS foods,
it's
in most cases, they don't have to worry. It's more for people who do not follow GAPS and they're still eating, let's say, some processed foods. They may be doing some healthy stuff, but not consuming that many minerals. They definitely need to not worry about it, but think about it and incorporate it in their schedule.
Wonderful. We could talk on this subject for a really long time. I was really hoping that we were going to get into a bit more detail about the parasites because I'm strangely fascinated, but not today. Not today. It's always good getting the bad stuff out. It really gives me such a sense of satisfaction. Monika, it's been such a joy. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And where can people find you?
My website is www.monikaholland.com. I also run a How to GAPS Facebook group, to us a number. So How to us a number GAPS group on Facebook, and that's how you can reach me. And
your wonderful collaboration with Dr. Natasha, that's going to be available as a course that people can find on your website.
Yeah, so if you go to my website, there is a tab with resources, great gut guide, that all the courses. So currently I've got Enema Masterclass, which I highly recommend to those who've never done enema, and for those who've done enemas and want to take that to the next level, because there are lots of advanced techniques for those who want to do it even more effectively. I've got Liver Flash, which we've been recorded with a fantastic expert, Marina Peck, who is the leading person on liver flashes. And the third course is No Plant Gaps, with collaboration with Dr. Natasha, hopefully coming soon. And there is also the Parasite course, which will be coming early next year, hopefully early next year.
Excellent. Monika, you're such a superstar, and thank you so much for filling people in. I just love your ethos, and you're so shiny. You're such a wonderful example of how we can survive and thrive these troubled times just by using the food as the medicine. Thank you, Monika.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel very humbled to be invited and chat with you, and I always feel inspired by your cooking techniques. I always feel like, oh my God, she's so creative. Love it, love it, love it, love it. So for anyone listening, just join Emma on her cooking classes, because it's just mind blowing. And
thanks.
It's like I would call it like a Michelin style GAPS chef.
Would you? It's like French cuisine, I reckon. It's but like chop it up and chuck it in, easy French cuisine.
Well, it's easy for you, but people need those skills. So, you know, I'm very basic cooking, you know, techniques, but you are Michelin style.
Thanks, darling. All right, love. See you soon.
Take care. Thank you. Bye bye.